The forest was dark and wet. Rain fell from the red sky, making the leaves shine like glass. Somewhere between the strange glowing trees, a human crawled through the mud, bleeding, broken, and tired. His name was Elias Ward, a soldier from Earth. His armor was cracked, one leg was useless, and blood ran down his forehead. He had been betrayed, not by the enemy, but by his own command. Hours ago, his team was ambushed on a recon mission. Elias fought hard, saving 2 others, but when the dropship came, they left without him. He screamed into his radio, "I'm still alive. I'm right here." But no one answered. Now he moved like a ghost, hiding from the search drones flying above. They didn't belong to the aliens. They were human. His own people wanted him dead. Maybe he knew too much. Maybe he had seen something he shouldn't have. Every breath was pain. Every step felt like a knife in his side. He leaned against a tree, trying to stay awake. Strange animal sounds echoed around him, but none dared come close. The jungle knew he was dangerous. Even in this state, then, he saw it. Eyes in the dark, not one pair, but many. Soft blue lights stared at him from the shadows. He raised his weapon, his hand shaking, but no attack came. A tall figure stepped out of the fog. She was not human, but not fully alien either. Her skin was pale silver, glowing faintly. Her eyes sharp, intelligent, ancient. She wore no armor, only flowing dark robes that seemed to move on their own. Elias stared at her, unsure whether to shoot or beg. She tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle. Then she spoke, not with her mouth, but with her mind. "You are not safe here, human." He flinched. The voice was calm and cold. He tried to speak, but coughed up blood instead. Still, he forced himself to ask, "Who are you?" She took a step closer. The drones in the sky buzzed above, searching, hunting, but they didn't see her. They didn't see him anymore either. "You were betrayed," she said, "left to die like waste." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. She already knew. The forest shifted, and large vines curled around Elias's body gently. He tried to fight, but his limbs were too weak. "Don't touch me," he whispered. But he was already unconscious as he slipped into blackness. He felt her presence, close, cold, but not cruel. And then he heard her whisper, right in his mind, so soft, so close, "You are forbidden to touch me." Human. The words stayed in his head as everything went silent. When Elias opened his eyes, he was no longer in the jungle. He was lying on a soft surface that pulsed like a heartbeat. Strange lights moved across the ceiling like slow lightning. He tried to sit up but couldn't. His body felt light, almost numb. His wounds were gone. No bandages, no stitches, just gone. The room was warm and alive, like he was inside a creature. He turned his head and saw her again, the same alien queen. She stood at a distance, arms crossed, watching. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes burned like stars. Elias forced a weak smile. "You saved me," he said. She didn't respond. She walked forward slowly, never breaking eye contact. "Why didn't you run when you saw me?" she asked. He coughed, laughing weakly. "Didn't have the legs for it." A pause. She didn't smile, but something in her eyes softened for a moment. Then she looked away. "You are the first human I've met who didn't try to kill me," she said. Elias looked confused. "I was too busy being killed by my own people." Silence again. She stared at him for a long time, then turned and walked away. Her voice echoed in his mind once more. "Rest, human, but remember this. Our contact is forbidden. Touching me is against our laws. And yet, I let you live." She left the room, and Elias was alone, his body healed, but his mind racing. Who was she? Why did she save him? And what law had he broken by simply surviving? The jungle was dangerous, but something told Elias this alien ship might be even more deadly. Elias woke up screaming, but no sound came from his mouth. His lungs moved, his throat tightened, but there was no voice, only silence, thick and heavy like a blanket around his body. He sat up fast, eyes wide, breathing hard. He was in the same strange room alive. Awake, but not free. The walls moved like living skin. Warm and smooth, light flowed in patterns, responding to his breath. He touched his chest, no wounds. No scars, not even pain. It was like the war had never happened. But he remembered everything. The betrayal, the jungle, the blue eyes watching from the dark, and her voice inside his head. The queen. He looked around sharply. She was not there this time. He stood slowly, testing his strength. He was barefoot, his armor gone, replaced by soft dark fabric. The room had no doors, only a wide circular wall that pulsed slowly. He walked to it and placed his palm on the surface. In a blink, the wall melted into light. He stepped through it, and into another world. The corridor stretched endlessly, glowing with soft blue light. Floating shapes moved along the ceiling like jellyfish in the sky. He followed the path, unsure if he was prisoner or guest. But deep down, he knew one thing. He was being watched. After what felt like hours, he entered a large chamber. It looked like a throne room, but there was no throne. She stood in the center. Surrounded by silence, the alien queen. Her silver skin shimmered in the light. She didn't move as he entered. She just stood, hands folded, eyes closed, as if listening to something far away. Elias opened his mouth, but again no sound. He waved, shouted, even stomped his foot. Nothing. He was trapped inside this silent dream. Then she opened her eyes, and sound returned like a wave crashing into the room. He gasped, holding his ears. It wasn't pain. It was like the universe had just turned back on. "You walked too far," she said calmly. Her voice echoed in his mind and ears at the same time. "This place is alive. It listens to you, even when you do not speak." Elias frowned. "What is this place?" "A ship," she replied, "or a grave, depending on how you see it." He stepped closer. "Why did you save me?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned and walked toward a floating platform in the center of the chamber. Images rose around her, glowing memories. Scenes from other worlds. A baby alien held by a human woman. A warship crashing into a planet. A human shaking hands with someone. Not human. Elias stared, confused. "What is this?" "Your past," she whispered. "And mine." She looked at him with cold eyes. "You were never supposed to come here. Your kind and mine were separated by law, by war, by blood." Elias felt the weight of her words. It was more than history. This was personal. He asked, "Why am I alive then?" She stepped close, just inches from his face. "Because I disobeyed." Her voice trembled. Not with fear, but with something else. Curiosity, maybe, or guilt. "I watched you in the jungle," she said, "even before you knew I was there. You chose to protect your team, even when they abandoned you. You killed no one who didn't attack first." She reached out, touched the air near his chest, never touching him directly. "I thought all humans were murderers. But you confuse me." Elias laughed, dry and bitter. "You're not the first to say that." A moment passed, then she said something strange. "You are the reason the old laws will break." He didn't understand, but before he could ask, she raised her hand. A beam of light appeared behind her, showing a secret transmission. A human general's face appeared. "Target is confirmed dead," the general said. "Operation completed. No loose ends." Elias stared in shock. "That's General Riker. That's my team, my mission commander." "They lied," the queen nodded slowly. "Your kind fears you, Elias, because you ask questions they cannot answer." He looked at her with new eyes, not as an alien, not as an enemy, but as the only being who had told him the truth. Still, she stepped back. Her face became distant again. "You are still forbidden to touch me, human," she said coldly. "My people would call me traitor for keeping you alive." Elias stepped closer. "I didn't ask to be saved, but now that I am, I want answers." She turned and began walking away, her voice trailing in his mind. "Then follow me. But beware, truth is heavier than pain." The queen was watching him sleep. but not with her eyes, with her mind. She stood behind a thin wall of living crystal, her hand pressed flat against it, on the other side. Elias twisted in restless dreams, murmuring names she didn't understand, crying for people who would never return. She didn't know why she cared. She wasn't supposed to. Her kind was trained to see humans as animals, unpredictable, emotional, and dangerous. But this Elias was different. In the silence of her ship, she replayed the moment he touched her hand. It was only for a second, but something ancient inside her had changed. It was not pain, it was not fear, it was warm. She stepped away from the wall as Elias opened his eyes. He looked around, confused again. The room had changed, now filled with soft glowing vines, like they were inside a dream forest. He sat up slowly. Was that real? He asked, his voice hoarse. She was already there, standing in front of him, watching, waiting, not answering. Then she said, "You spoke her name in your sleep." He blinked. "Whose name?" "Lyra," she said. "Your voice trembled when you said it." Elias's eyes went dark. He looked down at his hands. She was someone I couldn't save. Silence passed like a shadow between them. Then the queen did something unexpected. She sat down, not floating, not commanding, just sitting. Across from him. "In our history, emotions were seen as weakness," she said. "But your people seem to bleed feelings like rivers." Elias gave a small, tired laugh. "Maybe that's why we're always drowning." She tilted her head. There was something curious in her expression, not pity, not judgment, something closer to understanding. He leaned back, his voice quiet. "Why do you keep me alive?" She didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, "Because every time I look at you, something inside me breaks." Elias stared at her. The glowing vines around them pulsed gently, as if listening. She stood again and walked slowly toward him, not touching, never touching, but closer than before. "I watched your people destroy half of this galaxy," she said. "But I also saw one of your kind plant a tree on a poisoned moon, just to see if life would return." She looked at him now with eyes that had seen centuries. "You are war and mercy in the same breath, and I don't know what to do with that." Elias stood too, matching her height. "Maybe stop seeing me as just human," he said, "and start seeing me as me." Their faces were inches apart now. Her breathing slowed, his heart raced. She whispered, "If I let this happen, I betray 1,000 years of law." Elias replied, voice low, "I already betrayed mine." Then without warning the ship shook. A deep vibration echoed through the walls. Lights turned red. An alarm sounded, not like a siren, but like a heartbeat speeding up. She turned sharply. "Someone has found us." "Your people?" Elias asked. She nodded once. "But not to save you," she said coldly. "They come to finish what they started." She walked to a console made of light and stone, fingers moving fast. Elias saw a screen open, 3 Earthships moving fast toward them. His jaw tightened. "They're going to bomb this whole place." She looked at him, calm but fierce. "Then we must leave this body." He blinked. "What body?" The walls began to move, folding and shifting. The ship was alive, and it was standing up. "This is not just a ship," she said. "It is part of me." The floor shook again. A hatch opened beside them. The queen walked through without looking back. Elias followed, his mind spinning with questions. What had he stepped into? What was she hiding? And why, despite all logic, did he want to stay close to her? As the walls closed behind them, the queen's voice echoed in his head one last time. "You are forbidden to touch me, human. But I no longer know if I can resist." The ship was no longer sleeping. It was waking up, and it was angry. Metal bones groaned beneath their feet. Blue light poured from the walls like blood from open veins. And in the center of the command chamber, something ancient stirred, something buried for centuries. Elias stood beside the queen, his fists clenched. The room had changed around them. It now looked like a temple, not a ship. Carvings moved on the walls. Yes, moved, telling stories without sound. Stories Elias didn't understand, but somehow they felt familiar. Why does this look like Earth language? He asked, stepping closer. The queen didn't answer. Her hands were trembling. Not from fear, but from recognition. This room should not exist, she whispered. It only opens if the protocol is triggered. He looked at her. What protocol? She slowly turned to him, her silver skin almost glowing with tension. The one meant to awaken the first war. Before Elias could speak, a voice echoed through the room. Not hers, not his. Something older, layered, glitching like a broken. God, human DNA confirmed. Protocol unlocked. Bloodline access granted. The floor lit up beneath Elias's feet. He tried to move, but his body froze. Not from fear, his muscles literally locked. He shouted, "What's happening?" The queen stepped forward, her face pale. "It has chosen you. You are a key." Then the carvings on the wall began to change. They no longer showed just history. Now they showed him, Elias, standing in armor not from Earth, wielding a weapon made of light and bone, leading armies not of humans, but aliens. Beside him, the queen, but younger, not cold, not silent smiling. Elias stared in horror. "That's not me." "No." The queen whispered, eyes wide. "But it was someone who looked like you. Thousands of years ago, he was a traitor to my kind. A human who broke the sacred order." The chamber pulsed. The hologram spun faster. More voices whispered. From the walls, memory sync in progress. Reactivating buried code, Elias fell to his knees. Holding his head, visions slammed into his mind. Worlds burning. Stars collapsing, soldiers kneeling before him. He screamed. The queen ran to him, reaching out, then stopping her hand just before touching his skin. Her voice broke. "If I help you, I break the law. But if I don't, you may break instead." Elias gasped. "Help me." She pressed her forehead to his, ignoring every warning, every command in her blood. The room exploded in white light. When it faded, they were both lying on the floor, breathing hard, skin steaming. The chamber had gone still. The queen sat up, her voice shaking. "It is true. You are not a normal human," he coughed. "You think I'm one of your gods?" She shook her head. "No, you are one of our nightmares." A panel opened behind them. Inside it was a weapon, ancient, elegant, glowing with forbidden energy. It floated toward Elias like it remembered him. He didn't reach for it. It came to him on its own, the moment it touched his hand. The ship sighed, like it had been holding its breath for centuries. "This changes everything," the queen said, her voice low. "They will come for you, not just your people, but mine." Elias looked at the weapon in his hand, then at the woman who was supposed to hate him. "Why does the past want me so badly?" She gave him an answer that made his blood run cold. "Because you were the one who started the war, and you may be the only one who can end it." The blade was no longer glowing. It was pulsing like a heart. And that heart was beating in Elias's hand. He stood still, staring at it. The weapon felt light, but heavy in meaning. It moved slightly on its own, humming like it remembered being held before. Held by him, or by someone who looked exactly like him. The queen watched from a distance, not afraid, but cautious. Her voice came slowly. "That weapon belonged to the first one." Elias blinked. "The first what?" She walked toward him, robes flowing like smoke. "The first human who broke the treaty. The one who touched a queen and didn't die." He looked down at the blade. "What happened to him?" She paused. "He vanished, but not before leaving something behind." She walked to the chamber's edge and touched the wall. A new hologram appeared. A child born with human eyes and alien skin. It was neither one nor the other. It was both. Elias stepped closer. "Who is that?" Her voice was quiet, careful. "My ancestor, and yours." The room fell into silence. Even the ship seemed to stop breathing. Elias turned slowly to face her. "That's not possible." The queen met his eyes. "Your blood carries his code. Mine carries her legacy. We are not enemies. We are echoes of the same sin." Elias felt the world tilt under his feet. All his life, he had trained to fight the enemy. Now the enemy was saying they shared the same bloodline. And worse, he believed her. He backed away, shaking his head. This doesn't make sense. I'm a soldier, not some myth. The queen didn't follow. She stood still, like stone, but her voice trembled. We were told the child was destroyed, but it escaped, and its descendants vanished into the stars. Until now. Elias sat down, head in his hands. Why me? He whispered, why now? She came closer, still not touching him, never touching, because your people are about to start a second war, and mine are preparing to finish it. He looked up, eyes filled with pain and rage. Then let me stop it. She hesitated. You cannot stop what has already begun, but you can decide how it ends. Suddenly, the ship's walls lit up red again. A loud tone echoed across the hall, low and urgent. The queen moved fast to the control stone. Her hands flew over the surface. She turned to Elias with a look he hadn't seen before. Fear. They've found us. My people. Elias stood up, blade still in hand. Then let's run. She shook her head. They won't chase. They'll destroy everything. A screen opened outside. Alien ships floated in orbit. Ready to strike. Elias stared, then saw something strange. One of the ships had markings. Earth military markings. His blood ran cold. That's not just your people, he said. That's mine too. The queen nodded slowly. They've made a deal. Elias clenched the blade tighter. So they gave me up. They gave us up, she corrected. He turned to her, voice shaking with fury and disbelief. Then maybe they should fear what we are. The queen looked at him, not with doubt, not with anger, but with a strange, quiet hope. Then come with me, she said. There is one last place where truth still lives, and it is buried in your blood. Asterisk. The stars outside the ship had changed. They were no longer still. They were running backward, falling into themselves, like memories being pulled apart. Elias stood at the edge of the viewing chamber, watching them blur into dark. The queen stood beside him, silent. Neither of them spoke, because the place they were going was never meant to be reached again. Where are we? Elias asked. His voice didn't echo. The chamber absorbed sound like it was tired of listening. The queen's voice was low. We are inside the rift, a dead zone between stars, erased from all maps. Here no signals can enter, and no lies can survive. Elias looked at her. Then why did they bury the truth here? She met his eyes. Because they were afraid someone like you would find it. The ship trembled gently. They were descending into what looked like a collapsed planet, shattered in half but still spinning, like a broken clock refusing to stop. As they approached, the ship responded, not just to the queen, but to Elias too. Doors opened, lights shifted, walls bent slightly as he passed. It was like the place remembered him, and he hated that it did. They reached a dark stone gate, floating above a black crater. It opened before they touched it. Inside was no light, only whispers, thousands of them, all speaking at once, but saying the same name, Elias. He froze. How do they know me? The queen didn't answer. She walked forward slowly. Elias followed, heart pounding. Inside, glowing columns rose from the floor, each one holding a frozen memory, not just of his life, but of lives before him, a battle, a child, a human touching an alien and creating something new. Elias stepped closer to one memory. It showed a human in Earth military uniform, handing alien prisoners to another species. The same symbol that was on Riker's armor, the general who left Elias behind. His stomach turned. That's not history. That's now. The queen's voice was cold. Your leaders made a deal with my enemies. They gave them hybrid children, half alien, half human children who could walk in both worlds. They saw them as weapons. Elias stared at another image. A small boy locked in a container. The boy looked familiar, too familiar. His voice cracked. That's me. The queen didn't move. She let the memory play. It showed a baby with alien eyes, taken from a lab, raised in a lie, trained as a soldier, told he was fully human, told nothing of what was in his blood, Elias fell to his knees. I was never human to them. You were never only human, she said softly. And that is why they fear you. He clenched his fists. I trusted them. I bled for them. I killed for them. She stepped closer, still not touching him, but close enough that her words felt warm against his skin. You are not the betrayal. You are the proof that peace was always possible, but they chose silence instead. Elias stood slowly, eyes blazing. What now? The queen turned. There's one more truth left, but it's not mine to show you. A figure stepped out from the shadows, a human, older, in a black uniform without markings. His voice was familiar, calm, fake. Hello, Elias. Raised the blade instantly. Riker, the general smiled without warmth. Did you really think we didn't know what you are? You were never meant to survive that mission. Elias stepped forward. Then why send me at all? Riker tilted his head. Because we needed to see if the blood still worked. Needed to see if the stories were true, he gestured. Around, you just proved it. Elias clenched the blade tighter. His voice was shaking. Not with fear but fire. You betrayed Earth. Riker smiled again. No, Elias, I saved it. The queen raised her hand slowly. He has chosen his side, she said. What is yours? Elias stared at Riker, then at the queen, then at his own hands. He had spent his whole life fighting someone else's war. Now he would fight his own. He looked at Riker, blade glowing, and whispered, I choose the truth. Fire rained from the sky, and the sky didn't fight back. It simply broke open, like it had given up. The ground shook beneath Elias's feet, not because of bombs, but because of choices, his choices. He stood on the edge of the ancient crater, the hybrid blade glowing in his hand. Behind him, the queen stood still, her eyes reflecting both hope and fear. Before him, the armies of two worlds, human and alien, stood ready to burn him out of existence. Above, warships floated like vultures, waiting for the signal to end the bloodline that should never have lived. Elias turned to Riker, the general who had raised him, trained him, lied to him. I used to think you were saving Earth, Elias said. But now I know you were just keeping it scared. Riker smiled coldly. Fear is control, and control is peace. Elias shook his head slowly. No. He said, fear is silence, and silence is the first lie. The queen stepped forward beside him, her voice calm but echoing. You tried to bury the truth, General, but it grew in the dark. Riker looked between them. The universe has no room for your kind. Elias raised the blade. Then, we'll make room. He walked toward the center of the crater, where ancient technology slept beneath the soil. The queen followed. The ground lit up beneath their feet. The alien systems recognized them, not as enemies, not as invaders, but as heirs. A massive structure rose from the crater floor, glowing and breathing, a final protocol waiting for the blood of both lines to activate it. The queen paused at the base of the monument. Her voice softened. Are you sure you want to do this? You'll become part of something far older than war. Elias nodded. I was born from a lie, but I won't die in one. He reached out his hand to her, this time not as a soldier, not as a weapon, but as a man choosing his own truth. She stared at his hand for a long moment. She didn't move. Then, slowly, she placed her hand in his. No alarm sounded. No system rejected them. The world did not end. It began. Light exploded from the monument, shooting into the sky. The warships above froze, unable to fire, unable to think. Something had changed in the code of the universe. A message older than machines, older than hatred. Two bloods have joined again, and you can no longer stop it. The queen turned to Elias. Her voice was no longer guarded, no longer distant. You are not forbidden anymore, human. Elias smiled. Then let's rewrite the rules. The structure behind them unfolded, sending a signal across space. A message to all sides. The war is over, if you want it to be, but far away, in the shadows of the stars, another presence stirred. A different queen, older, colder, watching with eyes like dying suns, she whispered. Another has broken the order. Then we shall remind them what order costs. Back on the crater, Elias and his queen stood hand in hand, not as monsters, not as weapons, but as a beginning. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what they would become.